In this video, we want to talk about entrepreneurship and look at some of the terms that are associated with entrepreneurship. We also want to look at a couple of other topics. For example, we want to talk about whether the entrepreneur is born or is made. And that's a big debate that often arises when we consider entrepreneurship. And we'll finish off this particular video with just a general discussion about who is the entrepreneur, just some general comments about entrepreneurship. So it'll be in three parts really, but let's start by understanding some of the terms that we encounter when we study entrepreneurship. So start by, an entrepreneur is anyone who attempts a new business venture creation. Now that's the Department of Trade and Industry in 2004 in the UK. So anyone who attempts a new business or venture creation is an entrepreneur. There are within the literature many definitions of entrepreneurship. The one that I like best and many of my colleagues like best is that put forward by the famous Austrian economist Israel Kirzner, who suggested that entrepreneurship was alertness to profit opportunities. It was alertness to profit opportunities. The word alertness brings out the psychological nature of entrepreneurship, this idea of assessing risk and coming up with ideas which are new and innovative, ideas that other people did not think of. So in terms of academic definitions, the Kirzner definition is extremely good, but the more practical one here is the one put forward by the government department, the Department of Trade and Industry in 2004. Anyone who attempts a new business venture creation. So that's a more standard definition, and the one, as I said, many in particular academics like, is the one put forward by Kirzner. Now, social entrepreneur, well, it's applying business principles for social good. It has all of the hallmarks of entrepreneurship, except it's orientated towards doing something good for the community. So it may be that the social entrepreneur is running a business, but the profits from the business is dedicated to providing some service within the community, a new water system or a better school or better roads, or doing something for the community. So that would be our idea of the social entrepreneur. The intrapreneur, being enterprising in a large company, seeking opportunities for corporate benefit. The intrapreneur is a person within the business, working within a business, usually a large business, who comes up with some very good ideas. Ideas for new products, for new ways of production, for cost-saving methods. These are intrapreneurs. They're inside the business, and they're coming up with good ideas. Many of the good ideas they come up with, we don't associate with them, we associate with the company. The company may take the idea and register it to themselves. But entrepreneurs are very important. These are people within organizations who have ideas about what the organization should do, the direction it should follow, the products it should make, the changes it should bring about, and so these are entrepreneurs. Now, an enterprise, well, that's simply a business venture. So we use the term an enterprise. It means a business venture. SME is a small to medium-sized business. SME, small to medium-sized business. We're not quite sure what we mean by small. It's a debatable point. Sometimes we measure smallness by the number of employees, and we'd say that, for example, a small business might be less than 20 employees. A medium-sized business would be perhaps less than 50 or less than 100 employees. So we'd have some sort of definition for the number of employees which would define small, medium and large business. It's not very good as a way of classifying it, because some businesses may have a lot of capital and few workers. So the businesses may actually be very large, but they're composed of large, sophisticated and automated machinery, and perhaps the people are only required to monitor the machines. So very few people, very few employees are required. Now, is that business small or is it large? Well, simply we're using a different way of measuring. We're using capital as opposed to people, as opposed to employees. So the debate about what is meant by small lingers on, and we'll come across this in the literature. We also have this idea of a micro business, which is generally speaking less than 10 people. Again, as I said, a micro business could actually be quite large because it may be composed of a lot of machinery, a lot of very sophisticated computer-driven machinery that needs very few but highly skilled individuals to run it. Now, is that a micro business? When we think of a micro business, we generally speaking think of very few people working in the business, making something quite basic and straightforward. But the language even I'm using is very imprecise. What we mean by very basic, very straightforward, there's a big question mark as to what's meant by those. But nonetheless, having said all of that, these are general definitions of what we mean. So we talk about an SME, we talk about a small business. A micro business, a very small business. Now, are entrepreneurs born or made? This relates to a big debate in psychology about whether we acquire attributes or we acquire our abilities over time from learning and observation and experience, or whether we're born with certain predispositions. So genetically, we may be engineered to be a certain way. It may be that it's half and half, or some proportion between the two. But there is a big debate. In psychology, it's known as the nature-nurture debate. Is our nature, which is our genetic makeup, is that what determines our behavior, or is it our nurture, our experiences, our upbringing, our education, our backgrounds? Is that what makes us? So when we're looking at entrepreneurs, it's very difficult to decide why that person became an entrepreneur. If we consider Bill Gates for a moment, came from quite a good family. His parents were in law. I suppose their intention was that Bill Gates would go into law. In fact, he was spending his time working with very basic electronics and computers, and well, although computers were not really around at the time, but basic circuits and looking at this sort of thing, and goes on to become one of the most famous individuals probably in the history of the world, because Bill Gates changed the world in which we live. So, was Bill Gates genetically programmed to do this, or was it his experiences that brought this about? So we could look at innovators. Are innovators born or made? The truth is that many of us see products and see ways of working, and it doesn't strike us that we can improve upon this. Other people look at the same processes, the same situations, and come up with new innovative ideas. So why is it one group of people can't see it, and another group can. The entrepreneurs can. The entrepreneurs tend to be opportunity seeking. They're looking for something. They like the challenge of finding something new and changing it around, improving it, finding different uses for certain things, innovating it, changing it, modifying it. They're very resourceful. They are aware of the costs and the benefits of what they're doing. They're resourceful in the sense that they're aiming to improve a situation. When someone designs an app for a smartphone, they're probably designing it with a desire to sell it and make some money, but they know that this app should be useful to the user. It could be a game that simply will entertain the user, or it could be a productivity app that's going to help the user to achieve something, achieve it quite fast and efficiently. But the people designing the app, they're quite resourceful. They're going to use what they know and what's to hand, and they're going to try and develop something new and beneficial to the rest of society. They tend to like taking risks. They know that risks are inherent in a lot of what they do. For a start, they're looking into the future, and the future is uncertain. With a risk, we normally have some sort of probability idea of what the likely outcome is going to be. That's what we mean by risk. We have some sort of probability notion of what's going to happen. We have a 50-50 chance or a 60-40 chance or something. We assess it in this way. But with uncertainty, we have absolutely no idea of what's going to happen. So entrepreneurs are dealing with situations of looking into the future. And the future, according to some economists, the future is what they call unknowable. We can't know the future. So the entrepreneurs are facing into an abyss almost. They're facing into something that they don't know. They don't know if their efforts are going to be well received by the customers, if they're going to be successful or not successful. They are hoping that their ideas will be adopted and will be taken on board. But they are dealing with situations of risk and uncertainty. They tend to be quite good creative problem solvers. They tend to be able to find their way around problems and solve problems that perhaps other people may find extremely difficult. They may be able to use resources in a very innovative way. They join the resources together in a way that perhaps other people wouldn't have thought of. So they tend to be quite creative in the way they go about solving problems. Now, are they born to it? Is it genetic? Was it always the case that Bill Gates was going to become the great entrepreneur that he did? Was it preordained? Was it there when he was born? Or did he learn it? He may have learned it at school or from his parents. Or he may have learned it himself by observation, by watching, by learning, by analysing. Or it may be some sort of combination of the two, that he had got a good ability, a good brain. He was born with that, let's say, but he then went on to make observations and ask questions and learn and learn at school and went on to do all of that. And coupling the two together, we get Bill Gates, the greatest entrepreneur probably that ever lived. Or certainly one of the greatest that's ever lived. The entrepreneur has to have the skills to develop. They have to have that spark, that ability to do it. And that makes them different from the rest of us. Because sometimes we look at situations and we don't know what to do, or we can't see an opportunity in the situation. We're looking at it, we're looking at a company doing something in a certain way, and we think that's the way they do it, and then we move on. Whereas an entrepreneur may look at the same situation, look at the same company doing something, and think, if only they did the following, it would be better, it would be cheaper, it would be better quality. So they have this extra skill, this extra dimension. They tend to be quite nimble, nimble in the sense that they can change. They they can work on a situation, and if it's not working properly or the way they envisaged, they can move on quite quickly on to the next one. They may return and visit that later when they have more insight or when there's been new developments or new discoveries. But they don't get uh, stuck with the same problem and spend long periods of time on that same problem trying to resolve it. They tend to move on. They're certainly not uh, constrained by convention. The conventional view would be to do it in a certain sequence, do some job in a certain sequence. Entrepreneurs will always question the sequence. Why does the job start here, and why does it finish there, and why is it done in this way? What's the logic? And if there's no compelling logic, then why is it done that way? Why don't we look at other possibilities? So they're constantly looking at products to see if they can be changed. They're looking at inventions, discoveries from science. What are the universities working on? What are they turning out? Looking at all of these to see if there are opportunities to develop products that will satisfy customer needs, even though perhaps the customers don't recognize that they've got those needs. Sometimes we don't have a need. Nobody needed a microwave oven before it was invented. People were not going into electrical shops asking for an oven that will heat up food without a fire, without any obvious heating element. And when the oven's turned off, it's cool. No one went into a shop looking for such a thing, and if they had, they would probably have been laughed at. But when it was invented, it becomes extremely successful. So the entrepreneurs are sometimes trying to imagine what the consumer reaction will be to their efforts, to design a new product, to put it in the market, or to innovate an existing product, change it, and so on. Sometimes products are very well established. For example, vacuum cleaners were very well established, and yet James Dyson spent years, with lots of failure and lots of frustration, spent many years trying to build a better vacuum cleaner. Now, as you can imagine, his friends and colleagues and family must have said, it's already been done. In a sense, give up. But he didn't. And he went on to make a very successful product, which benefits the customer. This is an expression from Alexander Pope. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. This is a poem, an essay on criticism. The New York Times study showed 90% failure rate within 4 years. So entrepreneurs who come up with great ideas, the majority fail within a very short space of time. New businesses that come into existence fail within a short space of time. There are all sorts of reasons why that could happen. It could be that the entrepreneurs are not good business people. They're very good at being entrepreneurial, coming up with the ideas, but not good at running the business. A US Audit Bureau study showed 1/3 of companies succeed and 2/3 fail. So the evidence is somewhat different. The New York Times is 90%, but the other one is 2/3 fail, 66% fail, 67% fail. The point is, sometimes entrepreneurs, in their enthusiasm for the new product that they have invented, designed, innovated, they bring it to market too soon, or they're not prepared adequately to bring it to market. And this is where entrepreneurs have to be aware that they need to step aside and bring in business personnel to complete the project, to bring the business into existence. Because someone's good at inventions and innovations and modifying products and bringing up new products, because they're good at that doesn't mean they're good at managing a business. Sometimes we say that entrepreneurs are lucky. Well, depends on whether you believe in luck. Most people, I think, would say that entrepreneurs are not necessarily lucky, they are simply talented. They can see opportunities where others can't, and they work to exploit those opportunities. And sometimes the rest of us, looking at entrepreneurs coming up with ideas, we think, how did they come up with that idea? Who would have thought of that? Well, entrepreneurs thought of it. It wasn't luck, it was an idea. And having brought out the idea, they then put it on the market. And if customers believe it was a good idea for them, it will be successful. They have got vision. They're able to see situations very clearly. They're able to see opportunities clearly. And again, as I said, we can't see it. The vast majority of the population can't see the same vision. They can't see situations working. So it's the very creative people, the innovators, who can see this, who can see an opportunity, who can redesign a product or bring a new product into existence, and in the expectation that this will improve the life of the customer and will therefore be a commercial success. They've obviously got a lot of self-belief. They obviously believe in what they're doing. They're confident about their own abilities. They have a great degree of determination, I should say, to bring about the outcome. So they believe in what they're doing. They believe in themselves. They don't give up. Now, finally, in this particular class, let's talk about who is an entrepreneur. Well, we can identify an entrepreneur by their behavior, their demeanor, or outlook. They can be answered by what they do. We will see them creating new demand, commercial opportunities. So if it can be answered by what they do, then we'll see them in this way. They will create new demand. As I said, the microwave oven. There was no demand for a microwave oven. It didn't exist. We never thought about such a thing. But when it was invented, when the discoveries were made and it was invented and put on the market, there was a demand. So they created this demand. There was no demand before that for such a thing. The product didn't exist. So there was an idea that if microwave ovens were made, customers would buy it. They were looking at commercial opportunity. They're always looking for new ways of exploiting existing markets. This we call innovation. They're looking at existing markets and seeing, is there some way they can change what they're doing, perhaps modify the product, or sell it in different areas, or be innovative about the way it's been marketed, being innovative about the product itself, its design, its functionality. So they're constantly looking at ways of improving their position in existing markets. And then there's creating change. Order and complacency of existing social and economic systems. So, generally speaking, economic systems, we want it to be ordered. We want it to be settled down. We want it to work continuously without ups and downs. We don't want to have markets collapsing one day and booming the next day. Ideally, what we would like to see is moderate growth and continuity. But entrepreneurs are in the process of, in a sense, destroying equilibrium. When markets are settled down and a particular product is settling down and the customers seem to be quite happy with the product, and then an entrepreneur comes along with an even better product, or has taken the existing product and innovated it, meaning the original product is no longer in demand. The market has been destroyed and replaced by a new product. And as customers, we want newness. We want innovative products. We want novelty. But the other side is markets are being destroyed. Jobs may have been destroyed because the product became obsolete, because it was changed. Entrepreneurs changed it. But as customers, we benefit from a more stylish product, perhaps better quality, better designed, more functionality. Perhaps it's cheaper. So as customers, we may benefit from the activities of the entrepreneur, but perhaps as workers, our jobs may be at stake because the markets have been changed by the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs use innovation to exploit or create change and opportunity for the purpose of making profit. They do this, I should say, by shifting economic resources from an area of low productivity into an area of higher productivity and greater yield, accepting a higher degree of risk and uncertainty in so doing. A quotation from Burns, 2001. What happens in practice is that entrepreneurs maintain a process of change in society, and society is constantly changing, constantly evolving, constantly modifying itself. New products, new ways of living, new routines, new ways of working, new communication systems. It's all the product of entrepreneurism. And what the entrepreneurs do is look at areas where there's low productivity and then shift the resources out of low productivity into areas of high productivity. And that generates extra resources, profits for the business. I think it may be wrong to say that entrepreneurs are inspired completely by making profits. They're not inspired by perhaps profits completely. They may be driven by status or a sense of achievement. And many entrepreneurs simply want to make something because it's a challenge. A wind-up radio. Why would we want a wind-up radio? It was a challenge to make. But then, of course, it turns out serendipitously that it is a very useful product. If you happen to be in the middle of Africa, you can't buy batteries for your radio if it dies. But a wind-up radio, that would be very useful. But that was not on the cards when the whole process of development was in full swing. It was one man working on the idea. But the point is that sometimes people make innovations and bring about innovations and change, not necessarily for profit, but for reputation, out of interest, out of a challenge, rather than profits. Now, in this particular video, we've looked at a lot of areas associated with the entrepreneur. It's well worth going back over the video, stopping it from time to time and making your own notes off the video, and then reflecting on the notes. A lot of them are well worth bringing up in seminar situations and good for discussion purposes. But that's all we're going to deal with here, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.